This hour of broadcasting brought to you by TwoWayRadioCenter.com, a Motorola value-added reseller. Welcome to the Church Safety and Security broadcast with the Church Safety Guys. Brought to you by Vigilant Impact. The Church Safety Guys is a nonprofit organization dedicated to equipping the vigilant, those men and women who stand watch, keeping our houses of worship and places of faith safe. We believe church safety and security must be a ministry first and have engaged, servant leaders who continually strive for excellence and teams of motivated volunteers that are always training. Join us for the next hour as the Church Safety Guys unpack safety, security, leadership, and ministry operations with your hosts, Dr. James McGarvey and Mike Scully. This broadcast is also available on YouTube, your favorite podcast platforms, churchsafetyguys.com, and on the original Church Security app. Download it today. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share with your ministry.
Hello and welcome to the Church Safety and Security broadcast with the Church Safety Guys. I am James and joined by my co-host, Mike.
How are you, sir?
I am doing well. I think it's an interesting day. It's been an interesting day.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting week.
That it has. Been a bit crazy, but there's also some somewhat breaking news in the church security world. Somber news at that.
For sure. And we just actually were learning more information about it. And I found out about it about 2 minutes before we decided to do this broadcast. But in Albuquerque, and we will actually share the news story on the app here shortly. And we did actually just share it in the group. But in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a church security guard was killed in the line of duty. Was that yesterday that happened?
It was 23rd, Friday night.
Okay, so Friday night he was at the actual church working, and it sounds like, to me anyway, from the news article that I just briefly looked at, that he was a volunteer. That wasn't his main occupation. It looked like he worked for the fire department and was serving his church in that capacity. So a lot of details still coming out. So I don't want to. Obviously, we always wait 24 hours. It's been 24 hours, and
right.
But at the same time, it looks like he was approaching a vehicle outside, and the vehicle hit him intentionally, and there was a bit of a situation. Police in Albuquerque have caught the individual that was driving the vehicle, and by all, or for all intents and purposes, it's being broadcasted as an attempted murder to murder, from the sake of the individual driving the vehicle. So we definitely want to keep his family and also the church in prayer, and cover them in prayer. And as more and more details come out on that situation, we certainly can look at it and use it as a learning tool, and hopefully try and mitigate future things like that. It puts a lot of realism into all of this, and I think for me, again, everything is always so normal, everything is always quiet, and then I think a
Until it's
lot of
not.
times, until it's
Yeah.
not. And a lot of times we get into this, this mindset, and John Riley and I were both talking about this last week, that, the awareness factor of knowing what's going on, knowing how things can go south very quickly.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does. And unfortunately, this individual gave his life, in this situation. And, the individual that, was arrested, has had a history of domestic stuff with his spouse and other things. So, um, I don't know why he was at the church. I don't know if it was something where he could have potentially been planning something else to come in, to the church, but, again, something in the parking lot didn't look right, and this gentleman went and tried to investigate, and ended up, being killed from it. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Tragic. It's
it
I
is.
tell you, it when I caught the news, I mean, I guess the immediate thought that came to my mind was, "Well done, good and faithful servant." In that sense, is that it's a person serving his church, serving in a capacity to help keep that church safe. Yes, it wasn't a Sunday morning, but not all of us serve only on Sunday mornings. Um, and it was a heinous crime. I mean, so feel for them, and just thought it was appropriate that not only do we share the information as we've done, but yeah, be sure to keep them in their prayers, because that church is certainly got an uphill battle and a road to climb uh, after a scenario like that.
For sure. And there's still, I mean, you can Google it. There's still quite a bit of information. Daniel Bourne was his name, 61. And then, it says in the latest news thing that he is survived by his wife and 3 children. He served as, a commander for Bernalillo County Fire Rescue for 20 years and retired in 2008. So, definitely, absolutely, definitely keep that family in your prayers. And certainly, as we get more information on that, we'll go ahead and share that, with you guys in the groups accordingly. So,
Yep.
so for this broadcast, we, a lot of times, I know, as the groups on social media have grown, we've had a lot of folks reach out to us and ask us about different resources that we have. And, a lot of times when we when we have guests come in, to talk about topics, we have, some great guests, and oftentimes we bring in guests based on, your recommendation, and also your request for more information. So if you reach out to us and say, hey, we're looking for, um, you know a broadcast on de-escalation, we'll bring John Riley in and we'll talk about that. So, um, what we wanted to do on this broadcast is just kind of summarize some of the resources that we've created and put together, for your team. And, that way, you have the opportunity to kind of see what's available. Cause I always hear, from folks that reach out either through the app or sometimes through Facebook.
Yeah.
A lot of times they'll say, hey, I didn't even know that you guys had a devotional, or I didn't even know you
Yep.
had a book. And so, we just wanted to take a broadcast and kind of, relax a little bit on that, and kind of share some things with you. So, I'm going to pull it up here, and, we'll kind of, for those of you that listen at a later time, um, on, Spotify or, iHeartMedia, or on our podcast platform, we are going to play a broad, not, it's a PowerPoint slide presentation to kind of just walk through some of what's going on. So we'll try and speak all of the words so
Yeah.
that,
Make
you
sure
don't
we mention
miss,
all the titles.
for sure. So we'll go ahead and bring that up. So, jumping into it, we started the church safety guys, a couple of years ago, and the intent was to try and create a void of resources and try and create things that would be helpful to teams that we just didn't see available and out on the market. So this isn't in it. What's that?
To fill that void. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And this isn't in a particular order of when we released it, but it's just the resources that we have out there and available. So, so jumping into the church security app, that's available. That's free, free to download, free to register. There's alerts, there's news information that we pass along, member only content, resources, and you can catch up on our last broadcast in podcast form through that. And oftentimes we'll send out alerts, and we'll when we catch news things, we'll send out bits and pieces. And in the members only content, there's devotional content, there's information, different websites that you can connect to for policy samples and examples from like Homeland Security and different things like that. So just a bunch of really great resources to have at your fingertip. And that's free, as I've mentioned before, free to download on the Apple App Store or Google Play. And honestly, that's because of our sponsors. So right now, our main broadcast sponsor is Two Way Radio Center, Billy Dubenmeyer, and then also Motorola. So we're appreciative of that, but our sponsors and when we do advertisements here and there are the ones that help us provide stuff like this at a free and no cost to churches. So
Right.
Anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think it's great. I mean, it's the first one that's out there. I think it really, the idea is to try to give you something that you could access these things in your pocket on the go with you all the time. And we're continuing to put more and more there, and certainly open to your feedback. So if you have something that you think should be there, reach out to us, let us know. We're happy to look at adding it to the roadmap.
For sure. And a lot of the stuff, a lot of the files and whatnot that we used to have in the groups, we've moved to that, just to be more available and easier to share, and more filtered with the quality content. So definitely take the time, download it, check it out. And like Mike said, if you have any recommendations or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to us, because we're always looking to improve that. So this next group of resources is what we call our guides series, and I'll start with my favorite, one of my favorites. So the Case for Church Safety and Security, a biblical foundation for church security and safety ministry. Honestly, again, I think I've said it maybe too many times, but this is a resource that I put together because so many times we hear from churches that, in fact, I heard one today that a church in, I think it was California, reached out to me and said they're trying to start a safety team, but their leadership isn't necessarily on board. And they don't know why it's necessary, and they're struggling with that. And so this was a resource that we put together, and basically from Genesis to Revelation kind of goes through. It talks a little bit about my personal journey through safety and security, but then it also just gives a basis for starting a team biblically, and offers biblical justification on why it's a good idea to have that ministry. So when that book came out, or when this came out, it went to the top as a bestseller of Amazon in their church administration category, which was not something that I was expecting, but it just kind of proved that it was something that was was needed and necessary, and so that resource is out there and available. And it's
We've had
a
a lot of people talk about it and really how they've found like, hey, not only does it support them with their own struggle, perhaps of, am I doing this for the right reasons? Is this the right ministry for me? But also making that case to your pastors, to your elders, to any sort of oversight committee or board that you might need to have the conversation with. And it's not just the scare tactics and the fear of what could happen. And instead, you're basically
no.
saying, hey, we're here to mitigate, but look what the Bible says about it.
Absolutely. And that's a good the fear tactics point of it. That's a good thing to bring up. It's not, I mean, it talks about training and it talks about being prepared, but it's not I want to scare you into this. It's, we have a biblical obligation to take care of folks that come to our building, and certainly that's a way to connect with church leadership, because as we serve in the community and as we give back to the community with the processes and the efforts of church, we need to remember that folks that come in are our responsibility to be hospitable and to take care of those folks from a uh, biblical aspect. So this is just another arm. Church safety and security is another arm of hospitality to folks that come through our doors, and that's a good thing. So, all right. So the next one of the next bestsellers coming back. It did, again. That was another Amazon bestseller that took off, and that came from the question that we get asked a lot, and that's how do I keep going when I'm exhausted and I've served for 6 Sundays, 10 Sundays back to back, and I'm the only one. And so I kind of jumped down the rabbit hole of stress and burnout syndrome, and did some research on the topic, etc., and basically put that book together for the sake of folks going through and finding a biblical way to become refreshed and be able to continue serving. So
I think sometimes you could face that we do it all the time when we hit the snooze button. Sometimes in our daily life, but I'm sure there's times where you're getting up on a Sunday morning ready to go serve yet again, and you struggle with it. And why am I doing this again? Sometimes, I mean, we all have a day that is there. Hopefully, it's not because we partied too hard on a Saturday night, knowing the duties that we're approaching. But we can reach that point where, you know what, sometimes it's a need to, hey, I need a break, or hey, I need to be fed, or hey, you know what, there is even a point where uh, folks do retire from this role and from this ministry, and we have to acknowledge that. There is a point where somebody can't serve for 15 years plus. Not everybody's going to be able to keep going. So we have to acknowledge that it's not just a one-way open door at the beginning, but we want to make sure that we have policies, procedures, and ways to acknowledge the faithful service of those that are choosing to perhaps retire from the ministry or move on to something else.
certainly. And it's not, again, that's not something, it hasn't been around long enough that a lot of us haven't had to deal with that. And that's something personally, that I've had to deal with in the last year. And that's, stepping down and moving on to a different ministry that God has me working on, in my life. And I know you've done similar actions as well. So
Yep.
from that standpoint, we need to realize too that there are times when even though we're serving in that capacity in safety and security, that God wants us to be doing other ministries as well, and can open doors to move us out. And being cognizant of that is important. And that that addresses or is addressed in the book as well, that, from a transitional period and transitional position, that's an important thing to keep in mind. So that resource is out there now. This is something, and
Drum
we
roll.
haven't, what's that?
Drum roll.
Drum roll. Yeah. We haven't talked about this too much. I think there was a broadcast where we said, hey, this is coming out soon, but the 4 Pillars of Church Safety and Security is a brand new resource that's coming out probably sometime in November. And that is going to be, drum roll, a game changer.
Excited about this one. I mean, this is really kind of near and dear. It kind of came out of really what started as our own identity, and we were trying to kind of craft who are we as the church safety guys. What is our mission field? How are we operating? What are we called to do? How are we governing ourselves, essentially? And it kind of evolved into, hey, let's do a presentation about this. And so we did a conference session in Dallas, Texas this year, just last month even, and we had numerous people coming up to us that were, they basically they saw all our books that we had for sale there at the conference, and they're like, no, I want that one. I want the one you're talking about today. Well, it's not a book yet.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Like we were standing at the conference, and I think we both kind of had that moment. Like we looked at each other and we're like, this probably needs to be a book and a resource that we can hand out, because, because people were asking us, and people really loved it. And it does go through, it goes through critical ingredients of a successful team. It's not, it's not a magic wand book, but it goes through, ministry first, engage leaders,
operational excellence, and always training.
Right. And so from that standpoint, those we've looked at it, we've done research, we've been able to say, what, these are the 4 common consistent things that make a team successful. And there's some great stuff in there, and there's some good resources. So that resource is coming, and we actually have I will say too, we have a devotional that's coming along with that. So there will be a devotional and group study book that comes along with that as well. So
and one more quick comment on it. Really, it was in the sense is it all glory to God in that one, because really it was the divine intervention of kind of inspiration, really, even in that sense of kind of putting the right words in our minds, and the ability for us to set aside some other duties and really come together and collaborate to put that together in such a short period of time. We had a conference, so we had a whole lot of content really already. We just didn't have it in book format. But I think in that sense, to really flush that out even further in such a short period of time, it's just a God thing.
For sure. A lot came together in a short period of time. So, all right. So leadership series, this is going to be just our ministry life cycle series. This is a series that we're always working on, and it brings in the 6 components of the ministry life cycle. And the first resource, first book, is called Inspire, Influence, and Impact, Embracing the Ministry Life Cycle to Take Your Team Beyond Sunday Mornings. And so this is a six phase approach to consistently working with your team and having a successful team. And initially, I think when we started it, it was geared toward church safety and security.
Right.
And, we had a few churches reach out to us and say, you guys planned this for church security, but we're using this in hospitality, we're using this for ushers, door greeters, all these other
Yep.
ministries, and we were just kind of blown away. So we were like, okay, well, we need to expand on this. And
It definitely changed when we had a church buy an entire case of these books for their team, and it wasn't even a safety team, and they distributed amongst their core staff.
yep,
And these are not just volunteer leaders, but these are staff leaders at this church, and they chose to purchase this book. So we kind of rebranded the church safety and security life cycle to the ministry life cycle, but it is essentially the same 6 phase system. Also has a foundational element, and we'll kind of unpack. The intention was initially to just write this and talk about it at the higher level and the importance of each of the 6 steps.
yep,
And really, it was that there was so much to go into and so much that we could say that we couldn't fit it in a single book. And so it became something that really became a series of its own. And so we've started down the path of unpacking each of these phases as their own book. And so
right,
it's not just a startup checklist, it's not just a single book, but it's really meant to refine and dial in on the specifics of each of the 6 steps so that you, as a leader in any ministry, safety, security, or other, uh, can really understand the things that you need to continue to focus on. And it's circular in nature because at any given point you may stop at any one of these steps, but you may continue, and you go through seasons where you're hitting the same step over and over and over again. And
right.
so embracing this, internalizing it, and really kind of uh, preparing your mind so that when you do encounter these steps in real life, these scenarios, these things where you're actually faced as a leader in your ministry, this will help you navigate that.
Absolutely. And so, as we move forward, uh, this is one of the books. This is the foundational book in the series. Start with servant leadership, and this is a book that I put together, and it covers the 10 steps, not really steps, 10 attributes. Attributes is a better word. I like that. So 10 attributes of servant leadership and how it benefits us, and how it supports and is the foundational concept for this. And so we start the journey with a little bit of servant leadership as the model and basis for it, which comes straight from having a biblical model, because servant leadership is biblical. And that's kind of one of the things that we base it on. So moving forward, again, as we go around that circle that we showed you, we are creating a book for each component to dive in and go a little bit deeper. But the first book would be Vision for Your Team. And it's kind of hard to be successful if you don't know what you're supposed to be successful at.
Right.
And a lot of times, you know, church safety and security ministries need to complement the mission and the vision of the church. And you can take that. You don't have to recreate recreate the wheel. You can take the already established mission of your church and bring that to vision, an active vision for your team. And why that's important is because once individuals understand the importance of the mission of the church and how that connects through vision, they are better engaged, and they can actually get on board because they can understand why it's important, why church safety and security is important. And it's not unimportant from the standpoint of, we're doing these activities. This is the overall importance of wellness and interaction within the community, within the church. And individuals, people need to see that on our team as we serve. They need to understand why that's important. And so this kind of covers that and goes over that.
Absolutely. Just one last thing on the vision is really in my quote, my pastor, he really talks a lot about you have a role. What is the goal? In other words, you need to have a goal and you need to better understand what your role is. If you
Yep.
don't define that for yourself as a team, if you don't define that for your team, they won't understand what that role is. And so without that, that is kind of you're a rudderless ship at that point.
Absolutely. So the second step in the ministry life cycle series, or the next book that we have out and available, is Engage Your Team. And that kind of dives into how do we create a motivated, engaged team, and what's the best way to do that. And of course, we go back to, and there's a little bit sprinkled through all of the books on this, but the generational aspect of different ages of folks and different generations of folks serving. That's kind of the baseline for us to go back and say, okay, how do we motivate someone to show up and serve? How do we engage with them? How do we create an atmosphere that's efficient and effective with
Yep.
safety and security, but at the same time also understand and look at it from the aspect of, we're investing time and resources into these individuals that are serving. We want, maybe it's a little bit selfish, but you don't want to train someone and invest all of that time into training someone and then turn around and have that person leave
Right.
because that wasn't the right ministry. That can get very frustrating. And even from a business world and business perspective, companies are evaluating that all the time.
100%.
And so, we need, when we're serving in church, we need to be able to look at, okay, our team is serving, what can we do to disciple and pour into their lives to make this a better team, a better ministry, and more efficient. So
we also do unpack the recruiting process. How do you identify and find the right members for your team? And then we really do go, you must disciple your team members. We're called as part of as ministry leaders to disciple those in the church, and your team is your immediate charge to do that.
Absolutely. Okay. And last but not least, we have Equip Your Team, and that's actually coming out here soon. I think October 3rd is the release date tentatively.
Just over a week.
Yep.
Finally.
And I had a church reach out to me yesterday, I think it was, and they saw it coming out, and they already asked me if they could buy a case of them for their
That's awesome.
for their team. So this is coming out, and it'll come out on ebook and for the Kindle, and then also paperback. But essentially, this is another one where Mike and I dive into the idea of, what, even beyond just a training component, what can we do to better prepare people? And so with this one, we get into a lot of processes with onboarding, offboarding, like how do you handle a team member or volunteer that is, acting up, or how do you handle a volunteer that might be causing gossip issues or problems with the overall culture of the team. So I think in this one, really, we kind of moved more specifically to volunteers, like problem solving and how do you handle this type of situation and that sort of thing. So I think a lot of people are going to find it beneficial.
There's so much to equip. Is not just the equipment, but to equip your team, you need to make sure they have the right skills. And there's a combination. You need a balance of the right attitude and the right attitude. That really means that they need to both have a will, but they also have to have a certain level of skill. And so you're making sure that you, not only do you have the right recruit, that they've had a taste, if you will, before you've kind of revealed all of your your private information as far as how you operate, your standard operating procedures, your policies, etc. Are they the right fit? So you've completed an orientation. That's giving them the taste. Now, how do you take it a step further? Because you don't want to word vomit and basically try to tell them everything on their first day. That is,
I've done that a few
I've done that.
times.
I was just gonna say, I was like, you know what? I've had volunteers where I've trained and realized that I was like, there's so much to tell them, and there's so much they need to know.
Yeah.
And before you realize it, you're throwing so much at them in such a short period of time, they're not going to remember it all. And so there's an
Hopefully
idea
you
of
don't scare them away too.
exactly. Well, there's a progression. And so the idea of onboarding is a very thoughtful, detailed process to walk them through and unpack all the things related to your team in a methodical way so that they can retain it and so
Right.
that you're able to really again equip that team member.
Absolutely. And yes, we have had a crazy, the two of us have had a crazy busy year. So it did actually take us longer. I think originally this was supposed to come out the beginning of this year. And
I think March. I think
yeah,
we
and
ended up with a conference in Orlando in May that we weren't originally planning for, and that came up. And then, yeah, I mean, one thing like this is a big one. This is bigger step than many of the others because onboarding is a really big topic area.
for sure. And I will say that the other books in the series, we're hoping that we can finish them up next year and bring those out. But our national conference is going to be in St. Louis in March, so maybe we'll have time next year to bring
Maybe.
it out.
I mean, we have to finish 4 pillars, and then we
Yeah.
get that out in November, and that leaves us a short few months to crash and write amongst the holidays, of course, with Christmas and everything else. And hopefully, we could get something released in early 23 and get the next one.
Can they do it? So we'll jump into the next category, a workbook series. So 10 steps to starting your team, a workbook. This is based on, and I'll just kind of, for sake of time, kind of speed through some of these a little bit, but um, all of these resources are available on Amazon or through our website. And if it's something that you'd like to bulk purchase, I will mention that real quick too, that just reach out to us through our website, which is churchsafetyguys.com. And we can look at doing drop shipping and bulk pricing for larger quantities. So, but this is a workbook. It's a larger, I think it's 8.5 by 11. But it's actually a full color, and you can see that on Amazon as well. But it's a full color book, and it goes through the 10 steps to starting your team. This is based on the presentation that we do for a conference, or oftentimes we'll have a church that'll reach out to us, and we can do a webinar or in person in some cases. But basically, this is just an overview of how to get a team started and some important considerations. So, and then we have a kind of the sister book. This is also available on Amazon, but it's basically for church plants, or if I would even say if your church is having a hard time, or your church leadership is having a hard time with the idea of it, this kind of digs into why it's important to start talking about safety and security at the beginning of a church plant, and how it weaves into vision and purpose of that church. So that's also a workbook that's out there that's available, and it has a lot of great info in it. So the case companion workbook, honestly, we just redid this, and completely updated it and redesigned the inside and added to it. But essentially, we had so many people, so many churches reaching out to us about the case for church safety and security. When I wrote that, I didn't think about adding a devotional group study type component. And so I added that after through this. And we've had quite a few churches pick up copies and do it as a life group or Sunday school discussion for their team. So that kind of goes, that pairs up with the actual book, and it goes through and just offers some group study suggestions and different things like that for really digging into scripture more and looking at the reason for biblical reason for having a safety or security team. So, all right. So we have the devotional series, and that was honestly, the devotional series was the first group to come out. And we started there because there wasn't anything out there. There was nothing in the industry on the market. And I just felt like for discipleship purposes and for trying to have a ministry first focus, that having a devotional or something along those lines was important and necessary. So with that, with the devotional series, we have To Protect and Serve, and all of these are basically for anyone. They're not really written for law enforcement, but this was kind of one of the ones that we were able was it 2 years ago when it came out?
Already? Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah.
So we were able to actually go through and we were able to donate quite a few copies to law enforcement and different agencies around the U.S. and give some to chaplains. And it was a great encouragement, and still probably one of the most popular devotionals that we have out there. So,
Yep.
all right. So the Gratitude Challenge is a devotional, 30-day devotional, and with little bits of information about mental health and different things like that, and gratitude. We feel that gratitude is a strong foundational base for what we do and how we serve. And so this kind of ties back into the book Coming Back. But from that standpoint, if you are in a position where you feel like you need to take a break and you need to recharge, this is a great personal journal style book that kind of goes through and talks biblically about renewing your mind and being refreshed in the Lord, and kind of recharging your batteries for jumping back in. So
I've really found like that one's great to start out your year. So many folks
for
focus
sure.
on things like New Year's resolution, etc. But it's a good time to really focus on that yet again, to make sure you're starting your year off right. But sometimes it's even good where, hey, we're in the month of September. A lot of folks are starting school back up with their kids and things like that. So it's often another point in the year that is kind of another fresh start. So start it on the right foot. Start it with gratitude.
For sure. And this book was one of the first. I say one of the first. It was the first
And by this,
devotional.
it's war ready for those that are listening later.
Absolutely. And so what we did was we combined the idea of a devotional, but also with kind of an exercise regime. And actually, we've gone through quite a few copies of that starting off the year for New Year's resolutions as well too,
Yep.
because it's basically like a 30-day, hey, get in shape mentally, physically, spiritually, because we're called on often in church safety and security, and so we want to be prepared and be ready to handle things.
I like that one because of, and I found personally by going through that when we first offered that as a challenge, and we did that in the group, and I lost 30 pounds, and which
Yep.
was great at the time. I got healthier. I was able to kind of be mental health was better as well because I was getting rid of stress and so forth by being much more active and working the muscles, getting better oxygen to my brain, everything improved. So it was a great way to kind of be in the word, but also challenging yourself physically to truly be war ready.
Absolutely. All right, and so another devotional, "The Road Less Traveled," and again, that has, the cover has a fire EMS type theme, but basically it goes through the fruits of the Spirit in 31 days and talks about how we can apply those in church safety and security, and it's a good another good resource. So, all right. So the training component, moving on here, we've got some additional resources, and we'll bring that up. So we are partners with Centurion Bible College and ministry partners with them. And so we have offered the first certificate program and associate's degree program in the U.S. in church safety and security. And so this came out last October. And we've had quite a bit of interest in it, but this is something that has been very economical. It's all online. It's very easy to go through the classes and do the
Yep.
discussion and different things like that. And we've already seen the impact and seen how it can definitely change someone's outlook on church safety and security, and be a blessing to their church. So there's more information on our website at churchsafetyguys.com, and you can look at the class lists and different things like that. But we do also have a component of where the college will give credit for public safety or military. And trying to keep it economical. I think it's probably one of the most inexpensive associate's degree programs in the U.S. The entire reason that we've focused long and hard on being economical is for the lay worker in the church. And honestly, we go through different topics like leadership, ministry, hands-on. We go through disaster preparedness, de-escalation. Just about every topic that you can imagine pertaining to church safety and security. So,
Yep.
I think the certificate is 9 classes, and then the associate's degree is an additional 9 classes. So if you're interested in maybe pursuing that, feel free to reach out to us through our website, or you can reach out to the college through their website as well.
And we have different rotations starting at different point. It doesn't have to just be a January or September start. So we do have different groups. So reach out so that we can get you plugged into the next started rotation.
For sure. And actually, we'll take a quick break here, and I will play one of the ads for it. So hang tight. We'll be right back with you.
At Centurion Bible College, we're authentic about relationships, we're passionate on training, we're unapologetically biblical. And as the first college in the United States to design an associate's program in church safety and security, we're innovative. Explore Centurion Bible College and you'll find the tools to be better prepared to support your community and the mission of your church, the culture to help you engage with the people you serve with, and the environment to foster learning and leadership. Discover Centurion Bible College today. Enhance and develop the skills to engage and connect with your community when they need you the most. Be intentional in your community with a ministry mindset, understand concepts of safety and security, and make a difference today. For more information or to enroll, visit centurionbc.org or churchsafetyguys.com.
That ad, it still kind of, it stirs, because I'm like, you know what, the impact that it's having on folks who are taking the time to kind of say, hey, this is my calling, this is where God has me placed, but I'm taking it this seriously that I want to invest my time and energy. I want to pursue a degree or certificate program specific in this area so that I can serve better. So
Absolutely.
it's really good. It appreciate the folks that have already kind of gone through and graduated, or those who are enrolled today.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. We've seen how it's changed lives. We've seen how it's changed the outlook. One of our students came in and was like, this is my expectation of church security. This is how it should go. And then as they started going through the classes, said, wait a second, that's not right. Like my whole impression changed, and it needs to be biblically focused. And that's what this is. And so much of that content is, again, we created it for the college and with the college. And much of what that is from Church Safety Guys and all the guests that we have on and all the folks that we've been working with the last couple of years. So it really is a group effort to provide you the highest level of quality and training that academically that's available right now. So good stuff. So wrapping up, I know we're running out of time, but we did want to mention a couple other training opportunities and options. And one of those is webinars. We have, and if you're interested in doing a webinar with us or your team, maybe your church is financially strapped and you can't have one of us come out and meet with you or talk with you or someone else, we can certainly do a webinar, and we provide those at a very economical cost.
Yep.
And if that's something that you're interested in, there's definitely topics that we specifically will do the webinars on. So feel free to reach out to us through our website, again at churchsafetyguys.com or patreon.com/churchsafetyguys. That's one of our other ways to connect with us. But those resources are available, and we are always looking at adding more content to the webinar piece of it, as well as our conferences, which conferences are the other thing.
And not a small feat by any means. I mean, we're trying to at least do one a year, but as we've seen, God has other plans. And this year we had our big conference in Orlando, but we're also the gold sponsors and spoke at the NOCSSM conference in Dallas, Texas. So this year was 2, TBD.
Yep.
We'll see what happens next year.
For sure. I would say, well, no, we're not going to do that. We're only going to do this. But I said that last year, and and God proved me wrong. So, but yeah, we are going to, I think sometime in the next week or so, in October, we will have it connected up to our website where there will be information for tickets and different things like that. But we do have a date. It's going to be in March, and it's going to be in O'Fallon, Missouri, and it's which is actually St. Louis. And so we're really looking forward to that. Mike and I will both be there, and then we'll also have Dwayne Harris from Full Armor Church and John Riley with Gentle Response De-Escalation will be there. So really, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a lot of fun, I think.
Good one. For
sure. So other than that, I will say thank you again. Thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast. And we hope that you have a great and blessed week. and we will talk to you next week. So take care. God bless. Have a great night.
This hour of broadcasting brought to you by TwoWayRadioCenter.com, a Motorola value-added reseller. Thank you for joining the Church Safety Guys broadcast, brought to you by Vigilant Impact. We hope that you found it informative, and we appreciate your feedback and interaction. Be sure to share our broadcast with your teams, join the discussion online, and connect with us on social media. For other great ministry resources, download the Church Security app or at our website at churchsafetyguys.com. Remember, keep a servant's heart, a mindset of ministry, and semper disciplina. Always be training. Have a blessed week.